With Call of Duty World War II looming on the horizon, I thought it'd be fun to go back and play last year's release, Infinite Warfare, make a little video about its multiplayer component. Spoiler alert, it's not very good, and I'm not just saying that because of all the shitty business practices, even though they are shitty. I'm saying that because I think from a design perspective, it's a mess. Now, I didn't buy Infinite Warfare when it came out. I had played the beta, played the free week, and thought, holy shit, this game was bad, and went and played some games that were actually good. But the experience did stick with me, and I always wanted to talk about it because it just teaches some lessons that I believe are worth learning. So when I was able to recently get my hands on a cheap used copy, I was able to confirm my initial thoughts. Just going to give you folks a fair warning. I don't have many nice things to say today. This game has one of the most poorly designed multiplayer components I've ever played, and that will be the focus of our discussion because that's supposed to be Call of Duty's bread and butter. Very quickly, something I've decided not to talk about, the supply drop microtransaction weapon rarity thing. Now, it's a fucking mess, and I'm going to spare you a retread of all that because I just think it's been discussed already to the point of exhaustion. Because as bad as that is, honestly, it's just the beginning of Infinite Warfare's problems. Nearly immediately after playing this game, I stumbled onto what I personally believe to be the game's biggest issue. Infinite Warfare's enhanced mobility gameplay has often been criticized as generic. All you have to do is look back to the reveal trailer where it got disliked into oblivion to get the indication that this setting and the gameplay that it entails didn't go over well. But it's the gameplay that people got regardless, and these new mechanics obviously greatly increase your movement capabilities. You can power slide, you can run on walls, you basically have a mini jetpack for increased vertical mobility. It is a movement set designed to give players freedom, more options, and so on. Here's the problem. Infinite Warfare's map design is diametrically opposed to the principles of its gameplay. Infinite Warfare has maintained the now standard lane-based two-story high map design that Call of Duty has basically become synonymous with, so consider that for a moment. It features gameplay meant to give the players more freedom, more control, more options to enable creativity and traversal, but its map design contradicts those very principles with lane-based maps meant to simplify map movement and funnel the action to specific points. As you could imagine, the result is an absolute dumpster fire. For all of those not really in tune with what I'm talking about, let me break it down because I think it will help illustrate my point better. The three-lane structure that Call of Duty uses basically is used in the first place because it is easy to understand. It makes learning the maps easy and accessible because it simplifies a player's decision into three choices. These choices are the lanes. These lanes are often separated from one another, featuring very few controlled routes to pass from one lane to the next, and this essentially funnels the action, keeps players on a set path, increasing the likelihood they'll encounter other players, and because movement between lanes is limited and controlled, this makes moving throughout the map limited and controlled. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. I think it's really boring and excessive when every map in your game has it, but three-lane maps are a perfectly justifiable style of map design in a lot of cases. But to have an overarching formula that uses this structure in an enhanced mobility game, that's just bad design, because the map design undercuts and stifles the creativity that the gameplay is supposed to allow you. How can you even be creative and use this movement to its fullest potential when you are confined to the lane that you choose? Well, you can't be. Instead, mobility options are presented in the most boring, uninteresting ways you could think of. Every opportunity to wall run and jump boost is telegraphed in a manner that is painfully obvious and oftentimes implemented in a way that makes the movement mechanics utterly redundant to begin with. So you're going down this lane, and oh gee, it's a big flat wall. I wonder if I can run on that. No, hey look, it's another big flat wall in a bottomless pit. I wonder if the game wants me to wall run here. Please tell me, what meaningful interaction does this create? How is this interesting? How does it add anything? But more importantly, why does this make the mechanics worth adding to your game and your franchise to begin with? This wall run over the bottomless pit, what does it meaningfully add that a regular path doesn't, other than this appearance of danger, or the ability to run on one of these super obvious designated wall running walls, oftentimes literally marked with directional arrows like we're fucking stupid? The ability to enter engagements from a little bit higher verticality? How? When the game has maps that damn near religiously have a vertical limit of 2 stories anyway. This game's movement is dog shit. In the very second you try to get creative with these abilities beyond the painfully obvious sections where the developers want you to use them, the game fucks you. In order to preserve their precious 3-lane map design, they have absolutely littered this game with kill barriers and invisible walls. Even if it makes perfect sense, based on your abilities that you should be able to go somewhere, the game just won't let you, because the game's maps are not designed for the movement that you are given, and they don't even attempt to control that movement in a convincing way. All of these places that you should be able to reach based on the abilities you are given, you can't because it would break their poorly designed maps. It's like they didn't account for the abilities at all. They just made a bunch of maps with complete disregard for the mechanics of the game, and then went through and added a bunch of barriers everywhere, when competent map design would account for those abilities while the map is being built and either allow or prohibit access to an area in a natural way that doesn't break the illusion of the game. But as it stands now, it's absolutely horrible. And as I said a minute ago, the second you try and get creative, the game bitch slaps you back down to reality. Even something as simple as this. Instead of just walking into the middle of the street, I'm going to try and wall run, then jump over this arch and surprise them. And I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for Infinity Ward and their goddamn invisible walls. This is an occurrence that happens over and over and over again. The game and the illusion of mobility these mechanics give you completely falls apart as soon as you try to use them beyond the specific moments the developer intended. It's as if the game lacks confidence in its own gameplay, as if the game is afraid of its own shadow. If I don't miss my guess, whether it be Activision or Infinity Ward's doing, it was determined that COD was going to continue to ride the enhanced mobility train. They were terrified of what those abilities might do, so instead of truly embracing the mechanics, they half-assed it, and the result is some of the worst AAA map design I've ever seen. The game, to a degree of startling frequency, betrays the lessons it teaches you. Sometimes the devs put these little secret routes that you can use, which basically represents the extent of creativity you're allowed, by the way, but actually discovering these is completely trial and error. Sometimes you can use it to access parts of the map, sometimes the game just kills you, and the little danger indicators on the minimap that are supposed to let you know what parts of the map are off limits or a hazard, it's poorly implemented. The game is borderline incompetent when it comes to creating map boundaries. We just talked about invisible barriers. Well, the following issue is like the opposite of that, where the map has easily accessible open areas, sometimes that you can literally just walk into, that put you into like a 3-second doomsday timer that near instantaneously kills you. Let's put invisible walls where people might try to get creative, but let's put near instant death kill zones where even Usain Bolt couldn't make it back, in areas that you'll just run into even if you're just walking around. And it's not always areas that are apparent as out of bounds. Exhibit A, this fucking hole in the chain link fence. For some inexplicable reason, the developers thought, hey, you know what would make this map better? If we made this really confusing access point to an out of bounds area for no goddamn reason. It's so stupid. Why would you do that? The gameplay implications this could have are nearly entirely 100% negative. And yet all throughout Infinite Warfare's maps, you'll encounter instances like this. Oftentimes, they'll look just like the rest of the map. Scratch that, they'll look like places you're supposed to be able to go. In map design, you use these things called landmarks, and these are things in your map not only meant to attract players, but be an easily identifiable point for navigational purposes. Look at this big-ass pelican ripoff, right? This is basically a landmark, and it looks like it belongs to the map. You can walk up to it, it looks like you can walk around it and come out the other side, but nope, there's a fucking kill barrier and you're dead. It places certain things in areas that with your abilities you could easily jump to, but when you try, you die. It's poor design. Oh well, and all of that's okay. It's called learning the map. No it isn't. Learning the map is not learning what parts kill you and what parts don't, alright? This isn't fucking Minesweeper. And it shouldn't be learning where all the invisible walls are so that you don't get cockblocked while you're just trying to play the goddamn game. Only through trial and error can you find out what the boundaries of each map are, because the places that kill you look just like the places that don't kill you. And some places that kill you even look like places the game wants you to go. I'm flabbergasted. It's so bad, it almost has to be experienced firsthand to even be believed. The game is so horrified of its mechanics and so determined to contain them that I'm convinced there's more invisible walls than solid ones. They are so prevalent that you're likely to hit one just doing something as simple as jumping over a crate. Oh no, we better block that off, someone might stand on it. The game is full of things like this, invisible boundaries that clip into the play space and keep you from doing even the simplest maneuver, some that literally kill you. Inconsistencies with wall running, where some walls that look like you should be able to run on don't work, and to top it off, the little things just feel off. It's sluggish. Running on walls feels janky and unintuitive. The jump pack makes you feel like a retired NBA bench player trying to dunk for the first time in 30 years, and the slide feels like that same NBA player going through a slip and slide, only the second half doesn't have any water on it. And even the things that have felt really good in Call of Duty's past, like shooting, just feels off. It doesn't feel impactful. It doesn't feel satisfying. It feels soulless. Like they looked at Titanfall and said, hey, those are some pretty sweet moves, without realizing what makes Titanfall so good in the first place. So instead, everything feels like shitty gimmicks. Titanfall justifies its mechanics and makes them important. Titanfall's fast, fluid, and builds its entire game around its abilities. Call of Duty is horrified of its abilities and does nothing to make them interesting. I'll just use one example. In Titanfall, wall running can be done anywhere. It builds momentum. It's actually faster than sprinting. It can be used to extend your jumps. You can switch directions while on the wall. You can bounce between walls to access higher elevations. The game builds around its mechanics and provides significant incentives for using them. Call of Duty only cares about the surface level appearance. They only care about wall running being in the game, not about what that mechanic could actually do for it. So when you wall run in Infinite Warfare, it's slow, it's clunky, and it's unintuitive. It's a gimmick in the most strictest definition of the word, and is only ever truly useful when the game puts a super obvious wall in a bottomless pit and forces you to run on it. Infinite Warfare's multiplayer is bad. And I've heard this excuse that its maps are bad and the abilities are near worthless on purpose to maintain COD's formula. And whatever you have to tell yourself to justify you wasting your time with this piece of shit, you go right ahead and keep telling it. But it doesn't change the fact that Infinite Warfare's multiplayer is poorly designed, half-assed, and completely lacking in anything even remotely compelling. As a final recap, Infinite Warfare has a complete lack of confidence in its abilities and poorly accounts for them. It features horrendously lazy map design with poor visual indicators and nonsensical design decisions. It is without a doubt in my mind one of the single worst multiplayer offerings I've ever played in a AAA first-person shooter, and it's a damn shame that Activision knows they can get away with putting shit like this out. And that's all besides the garbage weapon system, the intrusive gameplay altering microtransactions, and I didn't even go into the generic combat rig system which follows the everybody gets a super move trend, also known as OP shit that kills you in one hit. And you know why Activision sold this and did all the shady stuff and filled it with a bunch of generic crap? Because they think you're stupid. They think you'll buy it and play it anyways, and as long as we keep eating this up, they'll keep spoon-feeding us shit. Well, we can take solace in the fact that at least apparently, somewhat of a statement has been made. Although Infinite Warfare still sold well, and by all accounts it's still successful, it's not as successful. It represents a decline. It received significant backlash. And while I'm sure the game was in development long before Infinite Warfare reared its ugly head, Call of Duty World War II appears to be in response to the loud group that wants a more traditional COD. And they're gonna get one this year. Whether it'll be good or not, we'll see. But without a doubt, it's a step in the right direction. I'm not just a COD hater, okay? I didn't make this video just because it's cool and hip to dog on COD. I made this video because I want COD to be better. I think COD games have the potential to be great. There's a few of them that I love. But if people keep buying shit, then there's no incentive for them to make something that's good. So it's important that people know that it's shit, and it's important that we talk about World War II when it comes out, both the bad and the good. Activision, just let COD be what it is. Don't make it a conduit for what's popular, and don't feel pressured to add trendy gimmicks because they always come off as half-assed and not as good as whatever you stole them from. And it does nothing but piss your core audience off, and it fails to satisfy the people who did want those abilities. Call of Duty, just being what it is already really good. And World War II will hopefully be not only a step in the right direction in terms of its gameplay formula, but in terms of overall quality as well. And it's gonna have to be in order to rebound from Infinite Warfare, a multiplayer component I could only ever describe as garbage. Till next time.